Hello friends, just a quick recap for those who are first time on the channel. I'm building a fuel tuner for my highly modified KLX250, 300 and now 355, and I'm already 9 months in the project. The project has quite a big scope. It's the custom PCB and custom firmware to run the fueling and to manipulate stock ignition, and also to connect to motorcycle ECU and read all the sensors. As I mentioned, project is already 9 months old, and there are already 2 iterations of the PCB. And let me just show you, because last week I received the second version of the hardware, which I tested on the bike. And let's see the first board and the second board, which is not the board, but almost production version of the device, which is already here on the bike. So the plan is that we will see the boards now. I will tell the main differences, and then I will show you how the application works, which connects to the tuner, and you can see in real time what's going on the bike and can change the fuel maps. So let's go and see how boards look like. What you can see here is the first version of the board. Is really the first prototype, so I put lots of connectors. I wanted to test what's possible, what's not possible. It's rather big. I especially put the credit card here so you can see the size, and this is the initial enclosure for the first prototype of the board. I've been testing this board for a couple of months on the bike, got feedback. Mostly it works, not mostly, like 99% of things worked. The only thing which did not work as expected was the spoofing of the throttle position sensor to manipulate stock ignition on the bike. If you're not sure why I'm doing that, there is a video on the channel about the KLX300 and KLX250 ignition and how it's connected to the throttle position sensor. So it's only specific for the KLX300 and 250, but this tuner, it works on any fuel injected bike, so skip this if it's not relevant for you. And now let's quickly see the second version of the board. So this is the second version of the board, and it's more or less how I envision it will be in the final device. As you can see, it's almost twice smaller. There are 2 connectors here, and I have assembled device here as well with this second version of the board. It's aluminum enclosure, waterproof. You can see the gland connectors here and 2 pigtails. And obviously for the final device, there is a harness on the bike, on my bike, which is plug and play. It uses the standard bike connectors. For example, I have an example of the throttle position sensor connector here. So yeah, everything will be plug and play, waterproof. I was not planning to show how it looks on the bike, because I'm a bit tired to unscrew all the plastic and put it back, but I did it again today, so I have plastic off, so let me show you. So for the controller, I have this bracket, but normally I would recommend to mount it under the battery. So I have the small lithium battery, and if you don't have lithium battery, I highly recommend. It's better cranking power and it's much more compact. So anyways, so here is the controller. It has the Deutsch DTM connector, and this wire goes to the throttle position sensor. Here it connects to the standard sensor. Then the controller connects in between using these two sockets, and there is a similar setup for the injector. So everything is plug and play. Yeah, so basically, and the second bunch of wires goes under the seat, and here it connects to the wideband and it connects to the ECU K-line. So everything is compact. As I mentioned, the enclosure is aluminum, but this top lid is plastic because the controller communicates with the phone by Bluetooth. So I need a plastic lid so the radio signal can go through the wall, otherwise it will be a Faraday cage. So I'm quite happy with the PCB V2, yet I can tell you that I was hoping that everything will work, but again, this throttle position spoof circuit does not work as I envisioned it, so the circuit must be reworked. But other than that, this is like really minor. I run this on my bike. Just it does not manipulate ignition, but that's fine. Now stop talking and let me start the bike and let me show how tuner connects to the phone. I think we will go to the garage because it's darker there, so I can record my screen properly. Alright, so we are in the garage. Let me turn ignition on. Okay, device is powered. So now we can launch the application. It connects to the device instantly. What you can see here, the bike is off, so the RPM is 0, and you can see the fuel enrichment according to the map. Let me just quickly show you the map. Here is my map for my 355. On the x-axis there is an RPM range, and on y-axis there is a throttle position sensor. So for example, I can twist my throttle and you can see the throttle, the cell is moving along the throttle axis. Yeah, one more thing while I'm here. I just want to make sure you understand that device work independently on your phone. You don't need your phone to be connected to the device via Bluetooth to run your bike. These are completely independent, so the phone is just needed when you want to change something on device or when you want to log and stream data from your device to your phone. So coming back to the dashboard, you can see throttle opening here. We can quickly start the bike. Yeah, let me kill it so it's not noisy while I'm showing the app. Now device reconnecting. So let me show you a couple of more things. The map we already seen. Then let's go to the interesting section, devices. Devices are the devices which are connected to the tuner. Let's start with the ECU. So tuner connected to motorcycle ECU, so you can see here. And we can read all the ECU readings here, just on demand. But what's interesting is that we can also continuously record and hook to the dashboard what ECU sees currently as a sensor. So we can, let's say, read the TPS sensor, the exact reading what ECU see. And then there are more options. You can see the intake air pressure, water temperature, intake air temperature, barometer, RPM, whatever. And then you can add this on the dashboard. So we can add the throttle position sensor and the ECU throttle position sensor. So these are two independent readings. One is from the ECU and one is from the throttle position sensor. Let me restart device so it can hook the ECU throttle position sensor. Yeah, now you can see both readings. So these are independent. One, the TPS is read directly by the tuner from the sensor because it's connected to the throttle body, and the other one is what ECU actually sees. So this is real data from your ECU. Why do we need this? Just mostly for the logging and make sure that these values match together and you can add them to the dashboard. The next interesting part will be air-fuel ratio. So as you can see, there is a menu air-fuel ratio source, and tuner supports two types of air-fuel ratio sensors. First is the generic. So let me explain you how the generic air-fuel ratio sensors work. So there is a controller which sends the data from the sensor. Then this controller processes the data. The logic is not really very straightforward, so there is a need for additional controller. And then it encodes the air-fuel ratio as the voltage and output voltage signal. So normally it's something like it outputs 0 voltage for 10:1 air-fuel ratio and 5 volts for the 20:1 air-fuel ratio. And then normally you can read this voltage and decode it back to the air-fuel ratio. So for example, the tuner supports this kind of controller. So you can configure it in the menu called analog air-fuel ratio. So this is the most common type of device. So you enable it and you set up, okay, there's 0 millivolts is the 10:1 and 5000 millivolts or 5 volts is 20:1 air-fuel ratio. I personally use the other air-fuel ratio wideband controller called Spartan V2 Lite from 14.7, and I really recommend to get wideband controller from Alan from 14.7. It's not advertisement here. It's just for the money. It's mind-blowing what it allows. The My Tuner can send requests to the wideband controller digitally via UART protocol, and then so let's start the bike. So I hope noise is manageable. So as you can see, the digital one showing the air-fuel ratio, plus it shows the temperature of the sensor. Now let me kill the bike because it's too noisy in the garage. So we already discussed the functions and the air-fuel ratio sources, but I think what is more important is this one, is the record button. So this record button allows you to hit it and it will record all the sensors and it will stream everything to your phone. So this way you can write and record all your air-fuel ratio values against your riding against your RPM and against your throttle position sensor and against your other sensors data. And this allows us really to nail down the air-fuel ratio for every combination. So as you can see from the my map, so the amount of fuel I add, it's wildly different for the RPM range and the throttle position range. And I came to this map after like several days of riding, so I recorded all of the data in the ways I ride, and as you can see, it adds lots of fuel around mid RPM, let's say from 3000 to 6000, this region, and it does not, we don't need to add that much fuel at the full wide open throttle and the high RPM. And I don't need to add fuel in the lowest region, in the low throttle opening and the, like, yeah, basically across the RPM board. This tuner can grow as you grow, and it grows as I grow, as I learn something. So it's not the device you install and then it's kind of written in a stone that it's it. There is a nice feature called firmware update. So I constantly work on the firmware and I publish updates, and you can update device directly from your phone. We can hit check for updates. At the moment it's the latest version, so there are no updates, but other than that, if new version available, you can check update, you can refresh your device from your phone. You don't need to connect via cable. It just, the way it works, the phone downloads firmware from the server I maintain, and then it pushes the firmware via Bluetooth from the phone to the device, which is like really nice feature. I myself, I really like it. There are probably more things. It just takes too long for a single video to show all the features which are available on the controller. I think it will take me some time to write a documentation and write an article what features are available there. So stay tuned. Now guys, about the timeline. So the version of device I've shown you, the version 2, had 5 devices, 5 boards. 1 is on my bike, 4 I had left, 3 of them already sold for the early adopters from our Discord. For the final version of the devices, I think I will create a pre-order, because I need to plan the manufacturing and I need to understand how many devices to order and what kind of automation can I afford. Please follow the link in the description and pre-order, and then I can calculate how we can do the production. I will need to still update schematics, so hopefully this will be sorted and next version of the device, which is production ready, will be available in about 1 month. But maybe it will take a bit longer, maybe a couple of months. But yeah, I need to estimate the demand for this device. So see you in the next videos, and join the mailing list. Mailing list gets updates first. Join Discord. For Discord, there are more updates there, and see you in the next videos.